do you want to text Matt? Hello, everyone. Welcome to LFC Transfer Room. Rigo is just going to text Matt if you caught the back end of that conversation. And we are here for the funeral of Liverpool's interest in Jude Bellingham. A lot of reports saying that we're now out of the race. David Ornstein, who's one of our who's a top tier source, saying we're out of it. But Fabrizio Romano, another top tier source, is saying we're still doing all the work. I think it's fair to say there's a lot that we don't know, but let's have a chat again about Jude Bellingham. Let's see what we think, and let's go through some of his stats this season. Let's see how he's been performing. Let's see if there's anything that jumps out from us. And let's sort of just look at if we still think this is going to be a possibility. Joined today by Rigo, Kev, and Drew. Drew's had a haircut. How are you doing, Drew?
It's one of those ones, if you've had long hair, you always regret it once you cut it. So I'll move on from my personal feelings as quick as possible. How are you, James?
I'm good. And what about you, Kev? Obviously, from having your flowing locks to...
having none. Yeah. Blew away one winter. No, I'm all good, mate. I'm all good. Yes.
Less than 2 minutes in, I'm already taking the piss out of Kev. And Rigo, your cap is kind of green, so you kind of lose your head every so often. It's kind of cool, but we're loving the background.
It's par for the course with the fan base as far as losing my head. So I think I'm just providing a visual of what's currently occurring, at least on Twitter, with regards to the Jude Bellingham quote unquote news that has come out from David Ornstein, as you mentioned. Apart from that and trying to calm people down, doing very well. Glad to be on. It's been a minute since I've joined the streams.
Well, just for a bit of fun, I thought I'd ask ChatGPT to write me a poem about Liverpool missing out on Jude Bellingham. There once was a football star whose skills had taken him far. Liverpool came calling, but he found it appalling. Jude Bellingham signed for Madrid. It's not the best one, but it'll do. What are you thinking, Drew? Are you thinking it's still on? We've got Fabrizio Romano in one ring. We've got David Ornstein in the other. We've got some absolute chaos people on Twitter shouting one way or the other. Where do you sit on this?
I think it's definitely too early to call the races unless there's a reliable inside source that says he's already made his decision. But I just don't see making the decision at this point. I can see Liverpool being a less attractive destination, honestly, if I'm a young player. I hate to compare us to Man United, but there just seems so much turmoil about the future of the club at the moment in terms of new owners, new directors, injuries everywhere. It just seems like there's a ultimate need of a clear out kind of refresh. So that can be an opportunity. I think with Klopp at the helm, that should be the driving force of reliability or something to rally behind. But it might be easier for a young player to go, you know what, I'm going to play with Pep or I'm going to play with Real Madrid. Liverpool have some stuff to work out. Let them do that. That being said, everything with his, love of the club, of Liverpool, his family around it, it's way too early to tell. But if we miss Champions League, it could be rough.
There's images today, obviously Trent and Jude going for a meal. There's also an image that's come out today of Jude signing a Liverpool shirt, from an England fan at camp, a Mo Salah shirt and stuff like that, Kev. He knows what he's doing. You're going to get clickbait from this. Where are you at on it?
I am where I was at the start. I think he's in his mind. He's got a team he wants to move to. I think that's us. And it's down to us. The problem we've got with us at the minute, as Drew quite rightly says, our actual hierarchy is a bit like our fan base at the minute. Fragile and all over the place and chaotic. And you don't know from what, there's one extreme to the other. We don't know what's going on. We get told in November, straight after the Champions League draw, we're up for sale. Since then, everyone from Qatar to America, all across the place. Stream spaces going on. It's a bit like the Bellingham situation. It's just chaotic. What do you believe? What don't you believe? Is what's happening true? Then you see the teasing from Bellingham, which then makes you think, well, there must be some kind of sense to what he says. I go from what he says and what I've heard him say, and he talks sense for a lad who's only 19 years old. He talks with a lot of sense and knows that he wants to go to a place where he can leave a legacy. That place is Liverpool. His favourite player has always been Gerrard. We can literally build a team around them from next season onwards, and the package is at Liverpool. The problem we've got with Liverpool is we've got owners who have had past experience and have provided the golden ticket every season, but don't actually provide the actual produce the goods, and we end up buying less of a player than what we need. It's been that way, and it's same with the fan base. The fan base is all over the place, and what's the best time to do it? Straight after the Bournemouth defeat, straight into an international weekend, and let's just hit something out there and see what happens. And by God, Ornstein got what he wanted. I believe last season he came out and said Núñez was done to Man United. So take it with a pinch of salt. Myself personally, like.
I think you're right, and Rigo, when you start to think about if you want to get the biggest amount of clicks, the biggest amount of action, you want to engage Liverpool fans, you just need to write a story that is one way or the other about Jude Bellingham. It doesn't even need to be the truth, because you're pretty much guaranteed engagements and clicks and things like that. And it's not what we're about here at LFC Transfer Room, but anyone wants Liverpool fans to engage with their content and they're any reputation, just throw in Bellingham one way or the other and you get it. So do we just have to become desensitized to this now, Rigo?
I think we just need to take everything that comes out with a grain of salt until we're seeing Jude lift up a jersey, whether it's our red, beautiful jersey that we've seen kind of previews online for, or, that white jersey for Real Madrid, or God forbid, Manchester City's jersey. We kind of need to be calm about it. There's, again, as I kind of put in the chat there, there's a lot of time between now and summer. All these publications and all these online kind of transfer sites need to create engagement, and Jude is the hottest topic on the street right now, and it has been for a while. So 1 week it's going to be yes, he's coming. 1 week he's going to be no. Obviously, all the signs from the outside looking in on the fan perspective point to him coming to Liverpool, just on his personal relationships with Jordan Henderson, him hanging out with Trent, whether it's on, during the World Cup or currently now during the international break, going out to dinner, catching a Chris Brown concert. All that is quite obvious, kind of pointing that he's going to come to Liverpool. The ultimate worst thing, obviously, in a nightmare scenario would be, A, we don't sign Jude. Real Madrid does. They need a right back, and Trent Alexander-Arnold, all he does is get hammered almost every weekend for his defense or whatever other reason. So they want to put in the transfer for him. And Klopp is just fed up with the ownership for not supporting him and giving him the resources he needed. And Ancelotti leaves to Brazil, so there's an opening there as well. So I think we kind of need to calm things down. Unless that absolute terrifying scenario plays out, we need to just see how the chips fall. And as I said, between now and summer, there's going to be a lot of rumor and speculation until something's definitively put out.
On some of what you said, I mean, I cannot see Trent ever walking away from this club. He would have to be booted out of this club so hard, in my own, regardless of what opposition fans say. Drew, do you think that he can be hounded out? Do you think Trent, could follow Jude wherever he may go, apart from obviously Man City? He's probably one that he'd avoid.
Yeah, I think it honestly could happen. I think, punditry and, fan, he's got Twitter page, he's got a Instagram page, if I'm right in remembering that. And, I think we saw, whether it's right or wrong, I think we saw Gini Wijnaldum mention the fan base, not the actual fans at the stadium, but the fans online being ungrateful for his service. And I could see Trent, That's my problem with like abuse versus criticism. Like you have a right to at least critique a player's performances, and you know, like you don't have to cheer. Or, you need to say he needs to step up. But if like you think he doesn't know he's having a poor season, he's going to be the first one to know that he's not meeting the standards he sets, and just throwing abuse at him. Pundits on Sky Sports and various other platforms saying he's not good enough, or he needs he's saying his defense is overly poor. It's like overly critical, and he might at a certain point be like, you know what, I've won everything you can win at Liverpool. It's my boyhood club, but I can go somewhere else, and that could be a realistic possibility. I think it would take a push, or like what if Liverpool got rid of Klopp, like something like that, where just continued instability and abuse. But unless there's a rallying point, that could be a potential outcome for him.
Now, Kev, I mean, we'll stick with Trent before we go back to Jude. You'll be old enough to remember.
Thanks.
Same as me, Steven Gerrard, when he was coming through, and some of the abuse he got, for his red cards and his constant hamstring injuries when he first came through before they changed all his seating, and he was going through a period where he was getting reds, violent tackles, getting injuries and hamstrings, and people were talking about, well, maybe he needs to move on. Maybe Gerrard needs to move on because of this, and then obviously it moved on to he needs to move to gain trophies and stuff. Sometimes people get caught in the moment, don't they, Kev, as opposed to what's currently happening, as opposed to taking a step back and going, well, actually, 4 seasons, Trent's the 3rd highest assist of all time in the Premier League, and maybe it's time to talk about conversion to midfield, which is, I think, what Carragher was alluding to when he said getting a different right back. Too much, or do you think actually there could be some?
It's a hard one. I think, James, this is probably his worst season for Liverpool by a long way. And during that time when you're not playing well, we're seeing the bad part of his game, and it's highlighted even more, evidently more so, especially in a team, as we've mentioned on numerous times, that has hardly any midfield, playing square pegs and round holes, and you are not going to see the fruits of what he can do. We are very reactive. We have too much stats and analysis that are at our disposal, more so than what we had back in the day. We are very reactive as a fan base, and we are always in a knee-jerk reaction to anyone, whether that's Curtis Jones, whether that's Trent, whether that's Harvey Elliott, anyone. Any of the youngsters, if they come in, have to play to a standard. And we know that sometimes that's not possible. And that hasn't been possible this season due to a lot of issues that come into one big complex issue we've got at the club. And because of that, we are seeing a lot of this that we haven't really seen in the past with the likes of Steve when he first started. The only difference is, I think Trent has played something like 268 games for Liverpool already. So, he is very experienced where he plays. We are, it hasn't helped. I don't think it's helped with the midfield. It hasn't certainly helped with the defense either. And with that comes the problems that you see with them. And then this is where we get overcritical. We should be practicing his defensive lines, etc., and all like that. He probably is, but I think with the likes of Trent and that, he's learned from Virgil van Dijk. I think is not to listen to any of what's going on any social media platform, and just play your game. It's not nice, and it's hard when you're sitting there watching it, and you know what the issue is, but you know that it's not. Although he's part of the problem, there's other people around him that are causing the issue. That is where the focal point comes on him. I think it's a tough place to play for Liverpool, especially when things aren't going right. And this is a season where we're learning about his character more so than what you're learning about what he can do on the playing field at the minute, for me.
And I think one of the interesting things for me, when you think about Trent this season, how many times has he overlapped Salah? And how many times has he come central and then tried to play the ball from a right central midfielder position? They're obviously doing something to his game. Whether they think it puts him in a more defensive position, whether, unfortunately, Harvey Elliott can't cover the same as, let's say, what Jordan Henderson could when he was able to run. They're doing something to Trent's game, which seems to put him in that right central midfielder spot more than that right wing back spot to cross the ball. Rigo, do you think they're going for conversion, or do you think they're just going for defensive stability until they can get in a right central midfielder that can sort of be that
I think
pivotal player?
I think we're kind of caught in between. I think coming into the season, they were already coming in with a tactical change, trying to shift the Trent a little bit more inwards, and with that combination of Salah and Elliott on the right wing, kind of eating into that space and that overlapping space that Trent would normally dive into. But with that and the failure of the midfield to provide any type of defensive presence, at least up until this point, I think it's a series of cascading dominoes at this point. With Trent, he's been placed in so many one-on-one situations that you're bound to give a mistake here and there. And with his offense's responsibility and our inability to score in a lot of matches, because again, we're also missing a lot of our key components on the front line, I think it's kind of put him between a rock and a hard place as far as contributing creatively and then keeping to his defensive responsibility. Then we're also playing players out of position who don't know where to defend or how to defend, or at least to the level that we're accustomed. As you mentioned earlier, Henderson no longer has legs, can't cover. He might have the heart and the grit out there, but I haven't seen him put a tackle or a foot in like 2 years. And unfortunately, you can't play that way. You can't have players on the field who won't cover or aren't able to cover for someone else's deficiencies or someone else leaving their space to be more creative. I think if we improve our midfield, that you'll see our press come back to life, and that in turn will eliminate a lot of those one-on-one opportunities that other teams have against Trent, and will minimize the highlighting of him as a weak link in our defense. Having Konate out and Matip and Gomez not performing at levels to kind of compensate or guard his back hasn't helped him at all either. We saw the difference Konate made in that last CL matchup, that he kind of ate Vinicius for lunch for the most part and did cover Trent, magnificently. We haven't had that for much of the season. So I think we would be cutting our nose to spite our face if we, A, either change his position, or B, decide to move on from Trent, which I think both would be blasphemous in my opinion. We have a world talent there. Use him to the best of his ability, and to do that, you just need to put players to support him.
No chance on this planet. If Klopp stays, he's selling Trent unless Trent asks to go. I could never picture that of him going, right, you out. Not with the level of loyalty Klopp's got. Now, if you are new here, please like and subscribe to the channel. I'm going to ask you guys to give me, we're going to go back to Jude Bellingham. Statistically, using FBref, there's a list of 10 players who play like Jude Bellingham plays. Do not look it up, Rigo, because I could see that you were about to start typing. Who, put it in the chat. We're going to go around you guys. What type of player do you think this season Jude Bellingham has been statistically comparable to? Oh, that was hard to say. Statistically comparable to. And I'll let any of you answer first, because I've got it in front of me. Obviously, Rigo might have had it in front of him before I said stop.
And no, I actually haven't hit up FBref. I'd probably put him along the lines of Nicolo Barella, someone who provides both defense and offense in that midfield area. So I'd pull him along those lines. Another
no, he's not in the top 10. He might be, but he's not in the top 10. Give me another one. Enzo said no. What was that, Kev?
Pedri?
No.
Manu Kone?
Kone, yeah.
At least for pressures, they're up there.
No.
Caicedo?
No.
What?
I'm doing this just Barella, no. Enzo, no.
Fede Valverde? Fede Valverde.
Yeah.
Valverde's in
Modric.
at number 5. Modric,
Don't tell me Jordan
no,
Henderson,
but
James.
Valverde looks to be one of the most statistical comparables. And the other one plays in Germany.
We have a lot of guesses coming up in the chat as well.
Thuram's a shout.
German.
So, it's a shout, but
It's
no.
not.
No, we're looking for Germany. Bayern Munich midfielder.
Musiala or Mueller or Kimmich.
Goretzka.
Those are all good
Kim-
ones.
Goretzka.
Yeah. The 3 players that he's most statistically like is Goretzka, Golovin, who plays at Monaco, Valverde. And then there's some like Milinkovic-Savic, Harvey Elliott to a degree, Fred and Dombele are statistical, but Goretzka, Golovin and Valverde. Now those are all action midfielders. It's not a very Man City midfielder, that is it? It is a very Klopp midfielder. What do you think, Drew? Do you think that high energy, high pressure player is what we need?
Yeah, that's what we've been missing. Feel like defensively he puts in a shift and he can contribute offensively. Very great creativity, link up man. It's exactly what we're missing. We're missing a bit of bite on the defense. You know, he's a good tackler. I've seen him a bit wild in his challenges last week against Chelsea, but yeah, it's good on defense, good on offense. It's really, you can't see why anyone wouldn't want him at this point. And at his age, you got a world-class player for at least a decade.
Yeah. The thing that really stands out to me is the most Klopp-type midfield stat that I can see when I look at Jude Bellingham is his highest tackle success is in the final third. He's in the top 5% of world footballers for tackles in the final third, 56% midfield third, 72% defensive third, but he is in the top 4% of blockers in world football, the top 16% of interceptions. Now, if that isn't a pressing midfielder, Kev, I don't know who is.
I don't. His stats, just saying that, is just outstanding. And that's what we've been missing all season in that middle of that park. We need someone pressing as high as possible, blocking, getting back, helping out. It just adds more. If there was ever a perfect player, and the mad thing about it is he's probably the closest we'll ever get to a Steven Gerrard you could possibly put together. He's that good, and he's only 19. And I don't see what the issue is in not getting him. If it makes perfect sense to bring him in. He's perfect for us. Like Klopp fits us as a glove as a manager, he fits us perfectly as a midfield player that we want.
No, Rigo, because I know you love Jordan Henderson, I'm going to give you the stats comparable. So, top 5% for tackles in offensive third for Jude. Henderson is top 18%. That is the only place where they come near each other. Henderson is then bottom 30% for midfield third, bottom 16% for defensive third. His interceptions is in the bottom 24%. His blocks is in the bottom 18%. His clearances is in the bottom 21%. His tackles and interceptions combined put him in the bottom 22% of world midfielders, compared to Jude Bellingham's tackles and interceptions put him in the top 20%. When you're trying to identify what's gone wrong with Liverpool this season, it's all apparent there when you've got a free roll Salah and a free roll Trent. You need someone with some level of defensive discipline, don't you, playing on that right-hand side?
1,000%. And whether it's been Henderson or Elliott, unfortunately, they don't provide that to that level. Klopp always seems to cover Robertson very well on the left-hand side with either Thiago, touches before he got injured, and before then, Genie, obviously. And unfortunately, Trent, with the degrading skills of Jordan, hasn't received that same type of coverage. And it's quite apparent when we see the way we play defense, and even we don't really get the ball back in that final third like we used to. Those easy opportunities, easy chances for goals are few and far between. Our quickest attacks are usually coming from a set piece from the other side of the field, and then with a long ball, we're at their goal, and we're not really getting those turnovers in the middle of the field. Fabinho has been, negated, unfortunately, because he's had to cover too much for too long at this point. And unfortunately, the only ones that we're hearing as far as a replacement is for Fabinho to be sold. And unfortunately, Jordan Henderson seems to get the pass every single time. All I see is Fabinho should be the one to go, while Jordan gets, treated with kids' gloves, unfortunately. He's been a great captain for the team, but at this point, he doesn't belong in the starting 11 anywhere close. And unfortunately, I'm not too sure that he would be amenable or acceptable to that diminished role off the bench, like a Mark Noble, for example, with West Ham last year. I don't think he'd be amenable to that. In the interviews that I've seen from him, either in years past or more recently in the High Performance podcast, he mentioned how much he dislikes not playing and can get into a mood because he isn't playing or isn't starting. And unfortunately, that's not what you need from your captain, especially when you see that you're not contributing as much to the on-field success as you used to. You kind of need to recognize within yourself that you're not up to those levels, and either take a step back or leave the team. And I don't see that happening. So it's going to be a very hard balancing act to follow. Kev said that Jude would be our perfect candidate to come into the midfield, and I couldn't agree more with him. He ticks off so many boxes, and one of those would be that he would be the only player that I can honestly say Jordan wouldn't have an issue with Jude taking his place. I could see Jordan taking the back seat to Jude way easier than I would, let's say, we sign a Thuram, a Kone, etc., coming in and taking his spot.
Now, we've got some comments from Kieran and Heliol. I'll probably come to you for the Heliol one. I want to speak to you about this one, Drew, first, which is 0 athletic midfielders at the club. Now, I'm not going to bash Harvey Elliott because I think Harvey Elliott is not a right central midfielder. I think he's more a playmaking winger, a bit like David Silva, a bit like Suso was for us. He's kind of in between. He doesn't have the pace to do that, but his defensive stats are just as bad as Henderson's. Bottom 14% for tackles and interceptions, bottom 6% of players for tackles in defensive third, bottom 22% for tackles in midfield third, top 30% for tackles in the attacking third, but tackles and interceptions, clearances, bottom 10% of world footballers. And I get this is the Premier League and Champions League and stuff like that. So we really have, everyone's moaning about Trent and saying he can't defend and stuff like that. He's being protected by two of the statistically worst midfielders in world football at the moment, Drew. So is it really Trent, or is he doing the job of two people here?
It's definitely not all on Trent. I think, as I said before, I think he'll be the first to admit that it hasn't been his best season given recent standards, but I don't think it's all on his shoulders. I mean, we've been crying out for midfield for a while now. Besides Thiago, we haven't really bought anyone in a few years now. But Shetic just seems to be like a great discovery from the academy, and more credit to him than our foresight in replacing midfielders. But for me, I'm a bit I love Thiago. He's brilliant. The quality's always there, and there is a place for him in the team. But I always am a little more questionable about Thiago. I think it speaks to his ability and his passion that he's, I think, like one of the best tacklers in our midfield when he's playing. But I always thought, like, when we had players like Genie, when we had players like Emir Can, Henderson when he was younger, Milner when he was younger, Fabinho before he's had this season. There were a lot of big players who could run. And now that we've had, Thiago and Elliott in the midfielder, neither of them can run very fast. It's just fact. And seems like the other midfielders' legs have gone. I don't know. We haven't seen Naby Keita. We haven't seen Curtis Jones this season, Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain. It seems like we've made the shift just based on current availability of what the style of our midfield is compared to recent seasons past. And I think we saw when Thiago first came in before the injury against Everton how perfect that system could be with a person of his technical ability. But since that injury, it seems like when he's been in the team, he's had to play be the defensive tackler when that shouldn't be his role. I just question, bringing it back to Trent. I've had the years, as Rigo and Kevin yourself said, we had the years of Trent being protected by the likes of Jordan Henderson. But the fact is that Henderson can't do that role game in, game out. It just seems like we have a lot of midfielders who are either having the worst season of their life or are past it. And you look at the age of the squad. I think when Klopp first took over and made those transitions, we were on the younger side, one of the younger teams in the Premier League. And now I think we're the oldest. And that's just begs for, a refresh. I think we've seen that with our front line in the past couple seasons, but we've all known midfield needs to be refreshed for years now. So, you can't put that on anyone individually. You gotta just take it for what it is and fix the situation.
Now, Kev Helios made a really interesting point here. Jordan Sancho, 73 million. Kai Havertz, 71 million. Christian Pulisic, 57 million. Naby Keita, 55 million. Bundesliga to Premier League. Can you think of anyone good? We've got Owen in the comments, so Owen, you can think of someone good. I know you.
Kevin De Bruyne, anyone? Did he play in the Bundesliga?
Wolfsburg, wasn't he?
Yeah, Wolfsburg.
Bobby Firmino, anyone?
Yeah, Bobby Firmino.
There we go. See, Ringo's all over this.
You can't paint with broad brushes, unfortunately. And player success, a lot of it is determinant on not just the player, but the team situation they kind of fall into. And with that, Keita, if he didn't get injured, I think he would have been terrific here in the Premier League, but he got injured. So, I mean, there's a lot of outlying factors there. I wouldn't be afraid of bringing in Jude just for the simple fact internationally we saw the level of talent he displayed and the quality performance that he's put on there. Owen, right there, Haaland. He's made a joke of the Premier League this season. He's scored more goals here than he has in the Bundesliga. Like, come on.
Sammy, another one. Wow.
Yep.
Oh, Helio, you've got him there.
Heung-Min Son came from the Bundesliga as well. I mean, there's plenty. There's plenty.
Thiago.
Yep.
Again, yeah.
A lot. There's a lot. So the point is a good one to raise, but there's plenty of examples to kind of beat it back.
Interestingly, one of the other areas I think Liverpool have failed this year, and as much as Stefan Bajcetic's come through and he's played well, statistically he's not up there. His possession stats are mid, stats of things. Like Henderson's are way up there. He's a good player, don't get me wrong, but one of the areas I think we're lacking, and one of the things I always like Declan Rice about, for an example, was Rice's ability to pick up the ball and drive forward from midfield. We don't run with the ball in midfield. We don't drive forward. We don't create space. Now, going back to Jude Bellingham, his take-on attempts is in the top 1% of world football. His successful take-ons is in the top 1% of world football. This is for a midfielder, by the way. This isn't a wingers or anything like that. His carries are in the top 25%. His total carry distance is in the top 19%. Again, going back, Jordan Henderson, because that's thing. His carries are in the top 80%. His carry distance is top 30%. His progressive carries is in the top 34%. Kev, we're not driving forward with midfield. And again, there's one of key Jude stats which matches up to everything we're lacking in our midfield at this moment in time, isn't there?
Absolutely. It's progression. and it's bringing in a quality player for a team that is lacking in, especially this season, and probably someone would say the last 2 seasons have been hit hard with those kind of stats. They're the kind of stats that Klopp will be sitting there and will be pairing her like anyone would. You've got someone who will literally drive you out with the ball. He has got an engine on him like you don't believe. His ability to block in both parts of the pitch is exactly where you want him to be, and that then frees up what you have on that right-hand side with Trent and allows him to have that free roll that he has come accustomed to. It hasn't happened this season because, as we've quite rightly said, we haven't had those plays. Bellingham, it gets annoying now because once you start producing the stats and that, you start getting in, and I can see why it's reactive with a lot of people, and people have created spaces because he's the perfect person. As I said, it's like a glove. You put him in that side, there's not much else wrong with the team that you just need to build around, but you're building a team around the best, if not the best midfielder you possibly could, and that's what you need to do to maintain the succession that we've had over the last 4 or 5 years. You're buying, you might as well go to Primark and buy a couple of lads, pick up a few lads up and get them a shirt, because that's what you're doing if you're not getting Bellingham.
It makes complete sense, and it's so, like, you look at what Liverpool were famous for: high press, progression, mixed runs, Drew. We were coming at people from all angles, and then right now nobody in midfield progresses with the ball. So when Trent's got the ball or Robbo's got the ball, well, defense drop back because no one else is going to drive at them. And one of the perks of a midfield driving at the center of defense is it pulls the centre back out and leaves space for your front three. Once we've got someone who can drive at a midfield and can shape an opposition, then players like Núñez, Salah will start to score the goals again, won't they? Not that they're not scoring goals, but will score even more.
Yeah, I think you said it. It creates chaos when someone can carry the ball through the midfield. Like, players or defenders have to address that. I mean, I think we see that, funny enough, we see that the most when Matip goes on his long runs. Like, he just starts pulling he splits the midfield, and the defender has to come out to address him. And then I remember, was it last season, he played the 1-2 with Salah and had a nice chip against Leeds to score. But, Matip has, been credited and kind of famous for his mazy runs through the midfield. And unfortunately for me, I'm always like, that should be the midfielder's job. I think someone said it in the comments that I think they were talking about athleticism, but for me, more ball carrying, like Ox tends to be like the one in midfield, unfortunately, because he never plays and he's
never put in midfield. He's been played on the wings every time he's come on.
And Naby Keita, like, I think back to that game when we beat Man United 5-0 when Naby Keita, scored the first goal. We were blitzing through their midfield. Like you said, James, just like, it causes chaos when you do that. And that, for me, it kind of reminds me of when Wenger switched from like the likes of Vieira to more like ball playing midfielders. I think that's more just the case of who's available for Klopp right now, but we are missing those players that can carry the ball. Had them back when Sharon was at the club. Genie. Everyone. We had players who could run and could carry the ball, and we're missing that.
Even Henderson used to take the ball, give it to Salah, drive forward, get the ball off Salah. Trent had come late, Salah would go inside, and he's not doing those runs anymore. There's not the same progressions with that because Trent's coming into where Henderson was playing. So it's just thing. And Italian league, Rigo, just Salah, I know he's not Italian.
The Italians don't leave Serie A.
Okay. Is there anyone else, gentlemen?
As far as targets for us, or
if we don't get Jude?
This is the thing. I kind of, and this is where I go, like, in the onset of our conversation here. When these articles come out, Jude isn't coming. immediately from every outlet, possible Jude replacement, possible Jude replacement, possible Jude replacement. Fuck that noise. I'm so sorry. It's just to get this engagement, guys. It's like, let's not think of alternatives. Let's think of Jude plus who? Jude plus who? Jude plus who? Until Jude is ruled out. And again, as Kev said, the most perfect transfer. It's to kind of put a baseball analogy, since we do share the Red Sox owners here. The ball has been placed on a tee for them to kind of wallop out of the park. You cannot ask for a more suitable candidate, regardless of the price. The price isn't going to go more than what we expected it to a year or two ago already. It was always over $100 million. So if they don't have this in the bank already, then by all means, come out with the pitchforks and flamethrowers, etc. to FSG if we don't, bring in quality. But we need to think Jude plus who revitalizes this midfield, not who's a suitable replacement for Jude. So unfortunately, I'm not even going to entertain that because I'm not going to move on from Jude until he's ruled out.
Okay. So Jude plus who? Because I like your suggestion. That's who I want.
Jude plus Manu Kone would be terrific.
I want Neves.
Jude, no. Neves too slow. If you want us to get, yes, too slow for me. I'm sorry. We have Thiago fulfilling that role already. Jude plus Manu Kone, Krefem Thuram, either from the French league, who's doing marvelously, who, according to Jacques Talbot, who we had on the podcast last week, we were kind of in for in January and kind of pushed it away because, he kind of referenced Bastech is kind of performing there at that time. That's why we kind of tempered moving for a midfielder in January. But Krefem Thuram just called up to the French national team. His star is on the rise. He's 6'4", can carry the ball like a guy under 6 feet, and shows all the physical attributes that we need from a midfielder. If not those two, then Manuel Ugarte from the Portuguese league or Florentino Luis as well would be great targets to kind of add some steel to our midfield. I think we bulk up midfield with ball carrying and defensive astute players. I think that allows everyone else on the team to shine, from Robertson to Trent to Mo Salah to Darwin Nunez, et cetera, et cetera. It allows our creative players to be creative without necessarily having to expend so much energy covering for the likes of Henderson or Elliott, who aren't up to the task defensively.
Drew, Jude plus who?
Caicedo, Kone. I'd be named that week. Yeah, name that because I think defensively we need, potentially a Fabinho replacement as well, or someone to push him. Unpopular opinion, we should get Maddie in to talk about him, but maybe Mason Mount if the price is right. Need English players as well. We'll probably lose a few in Oxlade-Chamberlain and Milner at the end of the season, so I got to think about that as well. But I think Jay and Kev in the chat have said this in the past, but Nicola Barella, sorry.
JK's in love with Barella.
Yeah, as he should be, because he's brilliant. Bellingham, Barella, and Caicedo would be unbelievable. Would be a dream.
Now, Kev, there is a lot of noise around Mason Mount. 170 grand a week's even sort of been coming out, which is Milner level money. And the guy can run with the ball. He's got every attribute to be a Klopp midfielder. He breaks down a bit. But Jude plus who?
Jude. Plus,
and yes, he does class as a homegrown talent because he's from Birmingham.
Yes. I'm all over what Rigo said. He's produced quite a few there that I would be quite literally would be mouth-watering to see alongside Jude. But just to put the apple amongst the cards, I do like Barella. I'm in the Barella camp. Although I agree with Rigo, very hard to get the talented players out of Italy. I would be all over Gavi, the Gavi situation.
Yeah, that's
a free transfer. Free transfer. Bellingham, Gavi, and Caicedo in that midfield. Well, I'd be well
If you do it the FSG way, it would potentially be Gavi, Mount, and Bellingham, and
Bellingham. Yeah,
split the money.
Exactly. That's it.
I wouldn't be unhappy with that.
I wouldn't. I would be very, very happy, especially if you've got Bellingham and Gavi, who are just going to be absolutely mouth-watering to see. I'd be all over that. That'd be a good window for me. But I agree with how Rigo's gone about it. I think the mentality should be Jude and who until it's been confirmed. I think that's the way, as a fan base, we should be looking at it, rather than looking at it from a negative point of view, in my view.
Yeah, I'm not clicking any article that says alternatives, even if it's our website. I'm sorry.
So James, Jude plus who?
Ah, damn it. I am going to say Mason Mount, because I think we do need an English player, because we're going to lose Ox and Milner. So I do think we need to increase our English contingent, and Jude and Mason would do that. It'd potentially be an interesting midfield with Trent converted. I am going to say Neves, because I don't think we'll spend big twice, and I think Neves is a reasonable fee. And there's been a few rumours, and if this is possible, I would be very interested, which is Ryan Gravenberch. He's been linked to a few clubs in the Premier League, us included, and if he is truly available, I do think he is that exactly the same type of midfielder that we need. 6 foot, athletic, can do everything, and can it sort of really put his stamp on the game. It's just, could I see Bayern letting him go? No. And as much as people say Neves has no legs, he's pretty much 10 step. People said that Xabi Alonso had no legs. When you've got it in your head, you've got it in your head. And Neves can play that ball like nobody. That's my take. He'd play him in the Fabinho role and just control the game. Different opposition, different teams. That's how I always see things. So if someone's just going to be camped in against us for 90 minutes, you want someone who's just going to whip that ball around everywhere. That's my take on Neves. I think he'd have a massive impact against low block.
Yeah, he's a terrific player. Just my line of thinking with that is we kind of have Thiago in that role, at least for the next couple of seasons still. And
further forward, though, isn't he? Thiago plays further forward.
Depending. Again, these are all players that you give them a role, they'll fulfill it.
Yeah.
They're so smart tactically and have pretty much every skill in their locker to kind of bring forth. The one thing about Neves that obviously we would like is that long distance shooting that we desperately lack out of this team. You know, that would be the one positive thing, and that's what kind of Yuri Tielemans on our free kind of gets brought up all the time because of his long distance shooting. I don't want Yuri anywhere close to our team, unfortunately. I think he has a loser mentality. You kind of see that with his performance in Leicester. He barely played for Belgium in the World Cup as well. So I don't like the vibes that he gives off. So I don't want him near our squad either. But for my own liking, for some of these targets that we're purported to be after, if we're not willing to shell out for, again, the perfect transfer in Jude Bellingham, how the hell are we going to shell out for Caicedo? How the hell are we going to shell out for Mount on his wages, or even a Neves, who the Wolves are going to command upwards of £60 million for his services? With those 60 million, you can go and negotiate and bring in Kone and Thuram for that fee. Thuram is rumored to be around 30, Kone around between 30 and 40 million. So I'd rather bring in two of those players, have them prove themselves in the Premier League. They're young enough to be moldable by Klopp, and you don't necessarily have that big language barrier that you would have with other players that have been recently brought in. That's my one hesitation. I know, Kev, you brought up Gavi. I would love Gavi on the squad, 1,010%. But I think if he is to actually leave Barcelona, Pep is all up in his ear at the moment already.
Oh, yeah, it will be. It will be. And especially if he's on a free. That's where it will come down to who's going to play him the right amount of money. And I agree with you. I think it's Man City will be favourites definitely for him. I quite like that Hellier quote there, James.
I'm a big fan.
I am as well.
Him and Trent will be fighting for the free kicks.
No, Ward-Prowse gets the free kicks.
Yeah, defo.
I think, but you make an interesting point, Rigo. But when you actually look at the financial situation and what's going to happen, Milner's on 175 grand a week. Elliot, Firmino's on 235 grand a week. Keita, Oxlade-Chamberlain, Adrian, all they're in about 80 to 130 grand a week. You are taking off nearly £500,000 a week from the wage bill. When you sign someone, obviously you spread that money over time. There is money there. It's just, are they prepared to spend it up front on a big transfer fee? That's always the big concern. So someone like Mason Mount will be all over because, again, you've made the transfer fee with just paying the wages. That's the big concern. But you're right. If they can get something for free, they'll get it for free every single time.
This is what I want FSG to kind of switch things around. Instead of, let's pretend our transfers are the stand, right? And loan us the money. Let us get these players and just pretend it's the stand and we'll pay that loan off like Liverpool did to renovate the stadium, build the training grounds, because none of that came out of FSG's pocket. I'm also very tired of them getting all this credit for the positive things that they've done. They haven't done it themselves. The club paid for that. And it goes to their model that the club has to be self-sustaining. So they loaned us the money, got repaid back. I think 70 million still outstanding. Just pretend all these transfers are a loan and you'll get it back when you sell the club in 2 years, 5 years, whatever the case might be.
I get your logic, but if you were to go to your job and they say, well, you know, your business has grown and you're in charge of it, and you go, but really you're not to get any credit for that because, you know, the business has just grown and paid for itself. You've not had to take money out of your pocket despite the fact you're getting a wage. It doesn't make any sense. Successful leadership deserves praise.
Yes, but I think they're over. It's always brought up. They renovated the stands. They built this. But I think it needs to be tempered because it's not as if they came out of it and said, hey, guys, we're going to do this while the club sustains what's on the field. You know what I mean? It has to be kind of balanced out. I think they get way, way too many slobs on the knob for that.
I don't mind what they've done because they're maximizing the value of an asset. And if I was an investor in FSG, the 325 million to 4.5 billion means that they are the messiah of investment firms when it comes to sports investment. They have done incredible things from that perspective. When it comes to what we want as fans, we would rather see them leveraged up to £4 billion worth of debt, making $500,000 from 375.
That neither. We don't want the club to be insolvent or under, but it's
the owners.
You know, there has to be some give and take, and I feel like it's not more been that way altogether too frequently.
It's more take rather than given.
Yeah,
it's just credit, undue credit, in my opinion.
I think they should, and I've always said I think they should take more risk, but you can't just say it's got to be well rounded, doesn't it?
Save it for a debate room, too.
Yeah. Another time. I'm just impressed by the financial modelling skills. So we're going to finish with Jude. Yes, +1. And I want one player that you think will come with Jude in the summer, because we're definitely getting 2 midfielders because we're missing out on so many. So Jude +1, Rigo.
Jude plus Crefin Thuram.
Drew.
Dream scenario, Jude plus Barella. Realistic, Jude plus Mount.
Kev.
Jude plus Jake. No, Jude plus Mount.
Jake? Who's Jake?
No, Jake. No, I was going to say Jake Spearn. It'll be Jude plus Mount. I agree with Drew.
Jude plus Job.
How about you, James?
Jude plus Mount, I think, is the most likely solution because it fulfills our English player quota. If you are new here, please like and subscribe to the channel. We do videos every so often, and we do debate rooms every so often. So if you want to hear us debate the success of FSG, you know, me and Rigo might get into that if we get enough people liking that and requesting that in the comments. Thank you very much to Rigo, Kev, and Drew for joining us today. Rigo's got one more point to bring up.
Before we sign off, Ramadan Mubarak to our listeners and followers who celebrate. And shout out to Mesut Ozil on his retirement, one of the best creators in the history of football. And have a great one.
Well put, Rigo. Take care, everybody.
Take care.